enough to know where is that?
Bradenton, kind of over by Marauders
Okay.
Stadium. Yeah, like I'm taking over the entire tap room, which is going to be interesting because I've never been to an event there. But they're like, you can have 40 inside, and I was like, okay, well we have half of that registered, so what do we do with walk-ins? Because ABA is taking care of ABA CUs, and I'm taking care of the OT CUs, and
Who's the ABA therapist?
it's Suncoast Behavioral. It's their group. I think Kyla's
So, good
president.
evening, everybody, and welcome again. Thank you for being here. I'm Freya Robbins, and I'm the founder of the Financial Wellness Center. We're glad to have you here tonight. Thank you for taking time to invest in probably someone who's very close and very special to you, and that's why you're here. That you're giving your time and energy to either speak to other people about your experience or share with someone else or maybe glean some information, something new that you don't know that you're searching for. So, thank you for your patience. We're each going to introduce ourselves. We're going to share a little bit about something, hopefully that will be helpful to you, and then in the end, we'll do questions and answers. Okay? So, I am the mother of a son with epilepsy, and that's really what caused me to begin to seek out answers because I knew nothing and I felt very hopeless until I found the epilepsy support group Josh provides here in Sarasota. And it's been very beneficial to me just to feel like I met people that knew exactly how I felt and that we could, if you will, commiserate together, but to share ideas about the medicine, the way my son acted, physical, emotional, financial things. It's been incredibly helpful to me. And so, as a result of helping my son get Social Security disability qualified and going through all those things with doctors and the legal realm, I decided that I would get my special needs certification. And I did it for my son, but as I was doing it for my son, I realized I could help a lot of other people, that other people are searching for the same thing that I was searching for. So I thought, why not? Why not do this to help other people? So that's one of the things that brings me here. And I'm going to pass it on to Mr. Philip Shapani, who is next.
My name is Philip Shapani. I'm a board certified marital and family lawyer. I have my son Carson, who is 8 now, nonverbal, autistic, and he has verbal apraxia. To say the last 8 years has been a challenge. It would not do it justice. So I've been through a lot between the school system of Manatee County, the um, different schools, and getting him therapy and paying for the therapy and things we've done. I was successful in getting him crisis waiver, which has been amazing, except for the respite care workers you get. So we just decided not to use them because they were horrific. That was a challenge too. I've been through a lot, and I've used my career as a tool to help educate other lawyers because people going through divorces sometimes really don't know about these issues, or they're put an autistic child on a schedule that has him all over the place during the week, and that's not good. A lot of you are shaking your heads like, it's not good. And so I put on a seminar with the Sarasota Bar Association. I put on a full day continuing legal education for lawyers in Tampa through the Florida Bar. And they created a committee for special needs children through the Florida Bar Family Law section, which was really amazing. So that's one of the cool things I've done that's given me purpose. And yes, at my feet is my son's service dog, Bo, and he's been pretty cool for the family. My son loves Disney, and you can't. Well, it was getting hard pushing my son, who's 100 pounds, in a stroller because he'll run. So we take Bo and tether him up, and we go on the rides, and Bo's pretty cool about it. And Bo goes on some of the rides. On some of the rides he can't go on, they have a kennel for you. So he goes right into the kennel. You ride the ride, you get off the ride, put the dog right back into the, and you pick up the dog at the kennel and be on your way. And there's always a Disney employee hanging out with the dog, and Disney's very protective of the dogs. If anybody messes with a dog, Disney employees get very upset by it, as I can tell you. So it's been the dog's been a blessing, and you can ask me about him and how I got him and all that good stuff. So he is trained, but if you put him in the backyard and took his vest off, he will go nuts. Okay, so yes, he knows what he's supposed to be doing right now. So
My name is Cheryl Albright. I am the owner of Soul to Soul Yoga and All Ages Therapy Services, but I am also a sibling of a 43-year-old on the severe end of the autism spectrum. So I've been there, done that. What you're going through now. Times are a little different from what they used to be. He was diagnosed, I call pre-Rain Man, but before 1980. So the services and things that are around today were not around then. Do you want me to get into my story now or later? Okay. So last year, my father got terminally ill and had none of his documents put together. And so Freya asked me to come here to talk a little bit about what that means. His guardianship paperwork was not in order. He's nonverbal. He needs somebody to be his legal guardian. I had no idea where my father's documents were, his will, his power of attorney, his healthcare proxy, because it was unexpected. He's only 69. That's not supposed to happen. So I'm kind of, hashtag have a plan has been my motto this past year, because this is what you're not going to do to your neurotypical sibling. He wouldn't talk about, death planning, I guess is what you want to call it, but he wouldn't talk about it. And it was just something that wasn't brought up until I saw the decline and started pushing. And when he went into the hospital, the paperwork was not filed with the state yet, and he wasn't expected to make it out. Now, fortunately, he has, and he's living with me, but I'm still having to clean up the mess that was created. My brother's not here yet, and if you guys have been paying any attention to what's going on with MedWaiver, it's making me a little nervous. But I am the sole responsibility of both of them now. So what they call us is the club sandwich generation. So we're taking care of our parents, our own families, and we have extra layers with the siblings in the middle.
which is exactly what I'm afraid of for my daughter.
Ghost of Christmas Future.
Because I have a 14-year-old daughter who's absolutely wonderful, and I don't want my son to be a burden. So my wife and I, but we just want to live forever, Sorry to interrupt.
Have a plan.
We have one. We do have a plan.
It's my only have a plan and have plan B, C, D, E, and F.
Hi, everyone. So I am Sierra Butler, and I am an elder law attorney, and I help people get their plan. I don't have a story about how my child has special needs or a sibling. I just realized that when I was helping families, a lot of people had these different special circumstances, and I wanted to be able to help them. And I realized the best thing that I could do was help connect them with other people that were going through the same situation. And so I'm honored to be on a panel with all of you. And I do it so that I can learn more, because every time I come to one of these, I learn something else that I can pass on to some of my clients. So I do a lot of education for families that have special needs with respect to how to protect benefits, and deal with guardianship issues when people, turn 18 and come of age. And I just like to be able to really be that support system. And I think because I'm not living it like other people are, it does allow me to step back a little bit and kind of help in a different kind of way. So I think that's the kind of different thing that I'm here. And I think probably that's why you might have asked me to be on your panel. So.
Seems so far away. I'm Karen West. I'm a speech therapist. I have been always wanted to be a speech therapist since I was a little kid. I love to talk, and I love to connect. So I have been a speech therapist in Sarasota since, oh my goodness, 93. I used to work for Manatee County Schools way back when I was 22 years old. And as soon as I went to graduate school, I became a licensed speech-language pathologist, which allowed me to work anywhere I wanted. And lucky for me, I worked at Community Haven for 9.5 years. So my caseload was fantastic, little tiny people with a myriad of disabilities. And what was the best thing about Community Haven was, there were adults there as well. My cleanup crew, every day, just joy was my biggest joy. And so I fell in love with 8-week-olds to adults, and still connected with those adults through the Miracle League. But anyway, as I grew with my little tiny people with autism, little tiny people grow up, and the disability changes and grows. And so my specialty used to be helping nonverbal children find their voice. And to me, that was is a tremendous job, and I love it. But as my children grew, and as I listened to the parents that I kept in touch with, I found that especially children with autism, Tourette's, ADHD, and kids that are undiagnosed social anxiety kiddos, struggle with their own sets of barriers that are as tremendous as children that are nonverbal. Because when you look at a child with a significant disability, you empathize with that child. You know they have something that I could help them with, or that they need, or that they're missing, for whatever your empathetic heart says. But when you are a 16-year-old with just a tiny bit of autism, and you have an IQ of 130, and you have no friends, and you're alone in your room 24/7, except for when your parents or your grandparents drag you out. Those are the children that are speaking to me now, or young adults. So because of that, I started a club on Monday nights, free, for kids with significant challenges with social thinking. I got certified in social thinking in Boston, and I just kind of thought to myself, okay, as much as I totally miss drooly little babies that need my help, my kids that are 17 years old that say, I want to take my own life because I'm so lonely, Karen, and I can't figure out the social key, it breaks my heart just as much. So I feel like my life's path is turned, and I don't even know how it happened, but here I am, and I met Freya, and I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
So I'd love to hear some questions from the audience. Any of you have any questions about some of what we've talked about? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have you say the question, and then I'm going to repeat it just for the purposes of the video.
This would be for Karen West on the speech, social skills. I have a 29-year-old daughter who is on very high spectrum, but I'm wondering what type of social skills groups are there for someone who's older? We're talking 29, who knows it all.
Oh,
doesn't wanna
yes.
be categorized or
Absolutely.
labeled. So
Absolutely.
we're looking like for a fun event, something fun
Okay.
to do.
So let me just repeat what she said just for the sake of the video. So Rose has a daughter that's 29 on the spectrum, and social issues are a concern for mom especially, right? and she doesn't get out much, and she doesn't want to be classified as one of those kids, because none of them think they're one of those kids. All right, go ahead, Karen.
Well, that's a difficult one, and one in this town that I found, the city, I'm trying to find a niche for that age group, and I haven't really found it, especially for kiddos who are 21 and over. There's after high school, you kind of linger a little bit, and some kids that are connected to their churches are either still like in a youth group but once you're in that 24, 25-year-old range, it's really hard, especially for kids who don't drive or young adults who don't drive. And so we are constantly talking about that as a group, because my high school group, the kids grew and they didn't want to leave. And so now our group is this eclectic we're 25. And so I know that that time is, telling me, Karen, it's time to move on and make this a young adult group. And so that's my goal. I'm working on it right now. I wish I could tell you that the Social Competency Center of Sarasota is going to open next week. But I'm working on it. I do find that lots of places like the Academy, which is, I just kind of drove by it. It looked like such a pretty building, and I thought, it's by Best Buy. And I called them and I said, geez, I'm wondering what this place is. And they said, oh, we're an agency for mental health, and we want people that have mental health issues to feel like they can go back to work, that they have a friend group. But then when I had kids or parents call, they would say, we do not take kids with autism. And so, interesting. And to me, so I don't know how to answer that. I know it's a huge need, and that's where my heart is. Especially, and I specialize in people who say, I don't need this. I don't need any friends even. I'm good. But that's where the work is.
There's a big need for it. I have to say that my daughter, I always go out there and look for things, as Freya knows. And of course, there's the Josh Provides group that's trying to put things together for our youth, which they've done a great job. But she doesn't want to go because she just doesn't want to be always labeled. So what I did discover for her was Dynasty Dance, which is during the Dynasty Dance Stars. And Sarah Hayworth has started a wonderful dance program for people with special needs, going from 1 day to now about 6. They're involved with different groups, Easter Seals. But the one thing that she looks forward to is they have a practice party once a month. So we've been taking her to those practice parties, and in the interim, slowly doing one-on-one dates, play dates. Still at 29, we all like to play, right? So we've been able to do stuff like that. But I think it would be fun to have a once-a-month thing where she would feel like there's no labels. She just doesn't want to be anywhere where there's labels, and that makes it tough.
And here's the hard part, is if social is ongoing, it's an ongoing learning process. So when I hear people say, oh, my kid goes to lunch bunch, so the guidance counselor pulls the quirky kids and the kids that don't have friends, and they eat lunch together, and then the kid goes back to class and gets picked on and bullied and becomes a bully, her or himself, because that's what's been done. I call it the failure, the cycle of failure. And so I feel like as a social thinking practitioner, I have to tell you that my goal is to teach people how to be social, how to think about you, just when this gentleman walked in with his dog and I said, hey, do you want to sit on the end? And he said, oh, my dog's really good and trained. But that's just an example of what I want to teach kids, to pay attention, young adults, pay attention, interpret the situation, and respond expectedly. Once we can do that, but it's the pay attention part that people don't know that they're not doing. Then they respond in an inappropriate way that makes people uncomfortable. People take a step back, and then they think, what's wrong with me? Why doesn't anyone like me? And so unless I teach you that, unless I teach you how to think about the perception of others and theirs of you, then I can't really help you because I don't think just a play group is going to help.
So we need to help Karen West put together the Social Competency Center of Sarasota. That's one of my goals, is to help her do that. And I think it's through organizations like this, people coming together and realizing that there are those kinds of needs, and how would different people benefit from that. So I love to connect all kinds of different people. I had a gal here earlier today. Some of you probably know her, Raquel Summer. She has an organization called Array of Hope, and it's a support group for families who have special needs. They meet at Bayside Church, a couple different Bayside locations, but they have rooms for the children to go in when they go to service. But this is a special support group that meets once a week, and believe it or not, they're meeting tonight. Otherwise, she would have been here. They meet Thursday nights, but they meet every single night of the week. They're working on a respite program. They have allowed they've gotten grants, and they've allowed some families to get away, and it's been paid for. So, through all of us working together for things like that. My husband's in the back. Wave, Lloyd. So Lloyd and I have talked too about, like, as we get older, and that conversation that nobody wants to have about, well, what happens when our son Joshua is 25. So, I say, well, in 20 years, I might be here, I might not be here, I might be very healthy, I could have dementia, who knows, I could get hit by a car going home tonight. What about Joshua? Like, who's going to take care of him? Where is he going to be? He is much like some of these other young people we've talked about. You'd meet him, he's very high functioning. You'd think he was fine, you might not even know anything. Spend a little time with him and you'd know something was off, right, Karen? But he doesn't need to be at the Haven. He doesn't need to be at Loveland, but he can't be on his own. So it's how and where do we find a place for young individuals like that? He doesn't qualify for a med waiver. He never will.
That's my daughter.
And that's your daughter too. So is there, our thought is, do we create a not-for-profit and then, do a group home? Or do we find 4 or 5 families who are interested in the same thing, and we all pitch in some money together, and we have a caregiver? They don't need 24-hour, they don't need a nurse, but they need someone to help them watch their money. They need someone to help shop. They need someone to remind them to brush their teeth and bathe and hygiene and those kinds of things. Does it sound familiar? Does any of this sound familiar to any? I'm seeing a lot of head shaking.
I thought in Venice, because my aunt worked for Loveland, or my cousins were special needs, and they were in living facilities. But I thought in Venice they had houses like that, where each person has a room, and then somebody comes in periodically.
They do in Loveland, but
These are outside of Loveland.
outside of Loveland, they used to, and I don't know if they still have those or not. I thought they got rid of those, and then when they built the facilities that like apartments like at Loveland, I thought those got taken away. But you can only afford those if you have money, lots of money to pay for that. And so if you're on a med waiver, you get those extra funds. If you're not on a med waiver, then you have to find out how can you do that. And I know.
And being on the med waiver doesn't mean that you get everything that your individual absolutely needs.
True. Good
And
point,
the med
Mary.
waiver is currently right now under siege.
Yeah.
The governor has directed the Senate and the House to go in and stop it from being in the red and move it to the black. Well, typically that means cuts. And this has been going on. They're now in Senate. They're now in session.
Right.
This started back in the summer. All this talk started. Thank goodness different groups got wind of it, and it's now really being addressed across the state with a rallying cry for families, providers, agencies, whether you're already receiving services from the waiver or you're on the wait list, everyone needs to get up in arms about this. And they actually had a big meeting yesterday up in Tallahassee to even look at, what would we cut and where would we cut and what. The problem is the waiver has never been funded appropriately. And legally, by federal law, we are not supposed to have a wait list. This happened many, many, many years ago, and it was a class action lawsuit that got us out off of a wait list. But then we've been put back on. We've slowly increased the wait list because appropriate funding every year is not provided to the waiver. And that's because we live in a state, Florida is a state that does not have state income tax. It's why people like to live here. It's why people like to retire here. There are only 11 states in the whole United States of America that do not have state income tax. All the other states have a state income tax, and that's typically how they pay for their waiver services for people with disabilities. So we pay for ours through legislative appointment, which comes from taxes. So, and depending upon who is in charge, often that's how it looks at how the waiver is funded or it's kept level, but our numbers keep going up. People with disabilities, individuals with disabilities, children with disabilities are not going away. Currently, right now, I heard there's 26,000 on the wait list, and they're serving about 35,000. So, if anyone's interested, I have some information here, because we're trying to do a rallying cry. Families can't get to Tallahassee. But the one thing we can do is we can write letters, we can send postcards, we can send emails, and if we could get to Tallahassee, get to Tallahassee. We had an opportunity before the session started to visit local representatives. They were in their districts, and I know a lot of people did that. But now they're up in Tallahassee, and it's very hard to get a hold of them unless you literally physically go up there and go door knocking, which you can. I've done that before and everything. But if anybody would like the information, I have a postcard here. I have several out in my vehicle. This is the latest version. It's a little bigger than the last one that was put together by groups, and this would allow you to write a message in here. One of the things they're looking at is if you do have the waiver right now, the majority of everyone has a support coordinator. So they're looking at cutting support coordination and taking it on a managed care route. That's what they wanted to originally do with the whole program, was go managed care. I think we have somewhat, through the rallying cries and all the phone calls and emails and all of that, convinced them that managed care is not the way to go for people with disabilities. My son with autism looks totally different than your son with autism, than your brother with autism. And they should not, and would not need the same things. Right. One of the problems too is they're not taking a whole lot of input. There's no advisory board that oversees the Agency for Persons with Disabilities. They oversee the med waiver, and they report directly to the governor, because we're talking multi-million-dollar money here. So, but my theory is you need a farmer for the hen house, and the governor and even people under him can't do it all. And consumers, our individuals, our families, providers, agencies, stakeholders should be able to be part of the solution. And so that's just my personal opinion, but that's, I've been writing letters and things to the different representatives and the governor and things like that, but just offering some suggestions or different ideas of don't just slash the funds without looking for solutions.
Right.
But I also know too that they do get bombarded with people on the wait list that don't want to be on the wait list anymore. There are families that have been on the wait list 10, 12, 14 years, ever since they could sign their child up at 3 years old.
Right.
So it's a long time sometimes.
Right.
But the ideal situation is to look at what needs to be changed without doing the least amount of injury to current individuals that are receiving services and funding in order to help people on the wait list get off.
So I think the biggest issue is they're making it look like if anybody has to deal with Medicaid and the Medicaid managed care plans and how you have to submit for authorization and it's a roll the dice who's on the other end, whether they're going to take your auth or not. That's what it's going to turn into. So you're going to submit for auth, and then this quarter they may not pay for the group home. So who's going to pay for it? So that's the problem. And the problem with the politicians too is that they have never lived it. They have they're looking at numbers, and that's it. They're not looking at the actual person. I know Tom Waters of Easter Seals asked, "Well, what's your solution?" I said, "I'm just going to let my brother run around the Senate. You take care of him." Like I don't. You have to get in their you have to get in their face. Like I don't.
That's what you have to do.
I don't know any other way other than to physically show them. He's nonverbal. He jumps up and down. He says "e" all day. He needs cues for all of his ADLs. He can't live on his own. And yet, and that's the part that really pisses me off is that nobody was asked to be born that way, but yet we discard them like yesterday's trash. And so, no. I said I would never get into politics, and that is slowly.
Subpart care.
So, everybody wants everything to be covered, and the part of the issue is that we don't have an income tax. Although I will say I came from New York, and his living situation is even worse there. He's in a state-run group home that is an institution. There isn't really a waiver. I'm his rep payee. I know how much money goes out. I still have to pay for his room and board. And the lack of what they're doing with him in the community because they're not spending his money. So, actually Florida is a little better, believe it or not. Now, downstate's a different bird once you get into the city, but the rest of the state, no, not at all. Especially the state run. Now, they have the nonprofits like they do here, Easter Seals and all of the chain ones, but no.
Every waiver system has issues and has problems.
Oh, sure.
Mine from
Yeah.
West Florida's.
Oh, yeah.
That's the crux of it. Or, like I said, people that are currently receiving services are going to be hurt drastically. And even people, if they use the money to pull them off the wait list, they're not going to get the services that they need.
So even I know how to manipulate the system at this point and get on crisis and do all of that fun stuff. There's not going to be any funds. Like, so what's the point? And so we're looking at ICF, which is a federally run program that is maybe a step down from the institution he's in, but is essentially an institution because there is nothing else.
Where is ICF?
You have something it's federal something. It's if you go to APD's website, they do have a link for it. They have cluster houses. They have one in Sarasota, and it's run by Sunrise. It is off Fruitville.
The neuro place.
No, not the neuro. It's not far from Fruitville. It's 17th. It's in a housing development. You wouldn't know it was there unless you knew the people that live there, which is how it should be. But the other ones, they have them all over the state. Now, they have 97 beds available. So,
Available?
as of December, they had 97 beds available.
Wow.
Yeah. So, it's either that or make your own and hope that you get some waiver support with CDC.
What I learned for my daughter Brianna is we're from California, and epilepsy is recognized there through regional center. We
Correct.
just learned that playbook.
Right.
So our option is we could think about moving to California, which we seriously are at this point in time, but everything changes. The
Right.
law's changing.
Right.
It could be, what we have now could be taken away.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
So it is scary.
Yeah, so we have someone who just mentioned that the laws in California are different, and it might be worthwhile for them to consider, moving to California, which you don't really want to do, but you have to think about what's best for your child. Bill, would you want to share anything about your experience with a child who has autism in Florida?
We relocated from Florida. We went to the Northeast, which is the epicenter for autism. But we didn't do it until after we waged a formidable legal battle, which you'll appreciate. We challenged the Collier County School Board with the denial of FAPE under IDEA, and we further challenged them on the denial of due process when they wouldn't hear our challenges. And uniquely, we made a connection with the Office of Civil Rights in Atlanta, Georgia, and we made a connection between the denial of FAPE under IDEA to the denial of his rights as a
Human.
individual under the American Disabilities Act. And the Office of Civil Rights intervened. And so it was a pretty landmark case and it had a pretty profound change. But during that process, because of a provision called statehood, the state denied all services to our son during the legal proceedings. So I had to relocate to the Northeast, and we did a lot of research, and we landed in the state of Pennsylvania, which I can tell you is total contrast to the state of Florida. They have quite a state tax system. They have some very reputable educational systems. My son got an exemplary education in the state of Pennsylvania at the expense of the state, and he just completed his first semester at a state university.
That's awesome.
And he's 26, will be next month, and he too is nonverbal and has always been nonverbal. And we were fortunate enough to tap into a new educational communication methodology that I'd be happy to share with anyone who has a child who's nonverbal.
Yeah, please share it now, please.
Yeah, please, go ahead.
It's a methodology called the rapid prompting method, RPM, and it is an amazing avenue for a nonverbal child. You mentioned your son with dyslexia. It's about motor skills they can't verbalize, but my son can write at such an intellectual, philosophical level you just can't hardly believe. Yet, throughout the educational system, particularly in Florida, but even in Pennsylvania, they wanted to label him as being mentally retarded
Right.
because he couldn't pass their version of standardized
Can't get it
tests.
out. Yeah.
They couldn't find a way to get it out. But when we found it, wow, we unleashed a mind that's just amazing.
So how does he communicate? Is it by like a computer?
He spells. He can spell.
He spells it.
He can spell. He has a vocabulary that's totally off the charts, and he can write in sentences at a pace that you just can't believe. And so he's found his voice, and he's a very capable young man. But we found that he was learning in every environment we placed him in. He just wasn't able to communicate what he was learning, and nobody could understand what he was learning. But when we finally tapped into his mind and could get there, we were all amazed.
That is like it's giving me goosebumps because my son has Proloquo to Go on his iPad, and we're trying to get him to communicate. And the other night on Monday, my wife, she's not gonna watch this. She was very upset at something, and she was very upset. And so my son got on YouTube and found the video, and all it said was, "Mom, don't cry. Mom, don't cry." And then he went back to watching Sesame Street and whatever else. And I was absolutely floored. And my first thought is, well, that's just a coincidence, but it's not, because it was the only time he's ever done that. And I'm just, I was like floored. So I know he can. I know everything's in there. It's just like, how do I get it out? And he does stuff like that, and then we were always at Disney because he loves Disney. We drove to an Outback that I'd never been before in my whole life, and we're driving back away to the hotel that we've never been, and I miss a turn, and he loses his mind, because he knows like he's like a map quest in his head. So yeah, it's just finding a way to tap into it, and if we can get, he can't really write or spell yet, but we're trying. There's no way to get the school system here in Manatee County.
No.
The last IEP I had with them, I showed them a video of my son sight reading and approximating words. And they whispered to each other they made that video up. And they didn't believe us. Oh, trust me.
I can't say I'm surprised, though.
It got worse after that. So,
And you as an attorney, they didn't have a bunch of people there?
I was there.
They didn't have people?
There were 2 other attorneys I hired there. There was the attorney for the school district that was there, and the 2 people who shall remain nameless whispering to each other, still whispered to each other, and my wife was begging me not to go completely ballistic. So
I know with my brother, they did facilitated communication, and then he ended up in, which not everybody believes in. I just see Mary shaking her head. But he started writing things that only he would know. And so he was mainstreamed in high school. They finally, same thing, unleashed a voice that he didn't have. The problem was, after high school, nobody pushed him to do it. His current speech therapist is just buying her time to retirement. She does not care to make a connection with him whatsoever, and he knows it. And so she's like, well, he only lasts 5 minutes with me. And I was like, well, because you're not very nice person at all. Like, I don't even understand how you have a job because you're about to lose a client. And with her, what was funny is, so when you go through the Guardian process, they actually sent the Guardian ad litem out to him to explain what was going on. So for whatever reason, they pulled in the speech therapist to think maybe he would communicate. Now, she's been doing hand-over-hand sign with him. He's had the same 5 signs since I was born. I've told her to move on I don't know how many times. And so the Guardian and her are talking, and then eventually he goes to leave, and he's like, do you understand or do you agree with this plan? And one signed yes, and then before he walked out the door, signed thank you. So it's not that they don't hear or don't listen or can't be taught or can't, right now I'm using LAMP, which is a slightly different. I find better than Proloco. I find Proloco very confusing. But it's language acquisition through motor planning or something. I forget what the acronym
Excellent.
is. Is that, am I
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
A speech therapist friend of mine told me to go get it, so I did. And I asked him, do you want to move closer to me? He hates the snow too. So I was like, do you want to live closer to me where it doesn't snow? He hit go. Like without even, he had been tapping the paper and flipping it, not paying attention. But as soon as I asked, he was like, bink, now? Can we go get in the car? Like, he wanted to go. So, yeah, no, I'm a firm believer. I know a lot of people didn't believe in facilitated communication, but he was getting better grades than I was in English, which was fine. And I was getting yelled at for that. But it was like he had somehow taught himself to read. We're not really sure because that's what they do. They absorb everything like sponges. So I know it's in there. It's just finding the right program. So maybe Proloco is not it, but just playing around.
Well, I wrote down LAMP, and maybe try something else. And with him, sometimes with the apraxia,
That's
because he
Yeah.
sends a signal and then it hits the motor planning strip and dies.
Right.
Every once in a while, something will go through that just makes it through. Usually, it's a curse word.
So where was he learning those?
From me, because
No, they tell you to like that.
I fully, but I'm happy. I don't care. He could do whatever.
Hey, you
he
said a word.
He could say whatever he wants. I don't care. I'm happy whenever he talks, whatever it is.
Sorry, I was working with a student with Rett syndrome who was deemed nonverbal, and the first word she ever said to me was "essay." So yeah, they pick up everything.
I came from California, so when I came here, my daughter was a junior, and we had everything in California. I was a parent liaison for the school district. I worked directly with the director of special ed, and we made programs happen because they didn't want to pay for all these private programs for the kids on having autism and social skills. You know, they had like 20,000 kids that they had to pay for. So we, as a parent and the team, created a program where we integrated the social skills. We finally brought someone into the district and we educated the speech teachers, and they coordinated with the OT and PT. They were not like separate entities. So there is hope. There are possibilities of putting these programs together. I came with a full IEP. I used to write her IEPs. And I came here with her perfect IEP to the Manatee School District. And when I met with them, they just looked at me with their mouths open. And the first thing they said to me is, "Are you going to be adversarial at every meeting?" And I said,
"Hell yes."
Actually, I said, this is kind of normal behavior. This is just like we're talking calmly. And I said, I'll be happy to work with you on getting these, you know, helping you attain these goals, because there's no question in California how to do it. So after the first meeting, they realized that I was really willing to work and help with them, but it was a horrible experience for her from what I've heard. And it should not be that way. It should not be and cannot be.
I will
Because it's
never,
in the laws.
ever
It's in the laws.
put my child in the Manatee County school system.
No, I took her out.
Never.
They don't,
We're done.
is
We're
he
done.
on a, McCain in a private school, or where's he?
He's on a McKay in a private school, but I would never put my kid. I'd rather, and my wife works for Manatee County School System as a speech therapist, as a contractor, and when he was there, I'm calling up her boss and screaming at her,
And he's a 255, he should be 255, right?
He's a 254.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, because the physical, you're missing the physical
No,
matrix,
you're missing the medical.
matrix,
Not-
yeah.
not 254.
What school, if I may ask?
He goes to Beyond the Spectrum.
That's where my son's at. I had a feeling.
So I mean, and Beyond the
That's what
Spectrum.
the school district's hoping parents will do.
Yeah, they're just,
Oh,
that's fine, no problem.
Well, yes, it is a
Why?
problem. It's a problem. Not every parent can go to a
Well,
private school.
You're very
There's not
correct.
enough private schools. There's not enough private schools that do it right.
You're right, because I used to work for the Gap School before it was found that they were mishandling funds, okay? And half of those kids lost their McKay scholarships because of the way it was run into the ground.
Yeah, and that's why we were scared about going to. There was a school called Virtus Academy, and they were like, "Well,
You're at the right school.
you can't." And then they told us we can't use our McKay, and I'm like, "Well, there's no chance I'm putting my kid there." So
But see, then
Goodbye.
at McKay, depending on which program, so my son's in the Monarch Academy, because he's higher functioning, which,
Whatever.
I don't. That's totally.
So, he's in the Monarch Academy, I'm a single parent with 3 children, all of them have unique abilities, Cheryl's personal with all 3 of them. And I have a point or just a comment I wanted to make on something you said that I appreciated. Their tuition went up because they have to expand their school and they have to expand their services. So tuition for 254 is $15,528. It went up $400, and I had to figure out how I was gonna come up with that $400. And I'm like, and they don't serve lunches, and I gotta get a private bus to pick them up and drop it off. And I've gotta have a special, summer camp program, we gotta pay for that, that's a couple $1,000. After school, if I ever have them in after school, that's $12.50 an hour, I make $12.50 an hour, so.
The grass isn't always greener on the other side.
No, but it was better than Oak Park, because that's where they put him.
Well,
Because instead of identifying and seeing he came from Hillsborough, where there was lots of services at the age of 3, we had all kinds of things. And when you move to Hillsborough to Sarasota, they're like, we don't have funding for that. Well, what do you mean you don't have funding for that? It's in the IEP.
That's
You're
illegal.
legally required.
That's illegal.
And then but see, I didn't So as soon as I pulled them out without notice, and then I had an issue with my daughter where I had to get the state involved. I had to have disability rights advocate for my daughter, who is dual diagnosis. She's gifted with PTSD and ADHD, but then come to find out on the behavior rating scale, she scores in autism. And then come to find out, I'm a genetic carrier of the autism gene. So when I'm telling people that, oh yeah, with my kids I'll have those weird quirks. Oh yeah, that makes sense because genetically I'm predispositioned to autism. And that brings me to that comment that when you were saying that you could have 130 IQ and still have the language skills. My daughter she picks up things like this, but she has zero pragmatic skills. She knows the steps, but she can't put it into practice.
Well, and
she can't execute it.
yeah.
And she's part of the lunch bunch, and she gets pulled out, and that's, because that's what they do, and she's got
They're trying
cars
their
and all
best.
this other stuff that they're supposed to do, and, they don't want to pull her out, but she still needs the support, but the school's like, or like my son who's high functioning,